Assalamu guys, Ifan back again with another video, and this is the third video in the multi-part video series on Visual Basic. Now, in part one, we looked at how to use Visual Basic to create a message box that would actually output a message to the user. In part two, what we did was how to use Visual Basic to actually update the value of a cell. Now, in this video, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be combining two different topics into one video. Now, what we will be doing is we will be taking an input from a user, two values from a user, and these also will be I'll be showing in two different ways. One, in the first way that we will be doing it is a input box would open up and you would enter these two values. And the second method, I'll show you how to have value put in, contained in the cell, and Visual Basic will go and read those values. And basically, these two values, whether you're reading it off from two cells, or you're prompting the user to actually type in those two values in input boxes, we will use those two values to generate a random number, and that random number that will be generated will be between those two values. So you'll have the low value and the high value, so upper limit and lower limit. And we'll see how we can use Visual Basic to generate a random number based on our input, the low value and the lower limit and the upper limit. And like I said, what we'll be doing is this lower limit and upper limit, we'll have a user input those values in two different methods. One, by we'll give an input box, and the user will punch in those values. And the second way is there'll be certain cells that we can designate where the user can actually go in and type the number in, the limits, the lower limit and the upper limit. And then when you click on the button, a particular cell which will display a random number between those two values. Okay, so let's get started. Now, like we have done previously, what we'll do is we'll first create a button. Okay, now, and as soon as you do that, this assign macro box opens up. We have seen this in the previous video. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and type in our code right here. Okay, so instead of, what you can do is just to click on OK and then go into the Visual Basic part here, and create a module, insert a module, and then type in the code. Or what you could do is when you are here, just click on New, and you can type in the code. So let's type in the code here. Okay, click on New, and see, it automatically gives you the sub and sub end. Okay, now in the first method, what we will do is we will have Visual Basic display two input boxes, and the person using this sheet would have to punch in values in the two different values in these two boxes. One would be a lower limit for the random number, the other would be the upper limit, and Visual Basic will generate a random number that's somewhere in between those, the lower limit and the upper limit. So the first method, what we'll do is we'll have an input box created. So the way that you would do that is when the user is typing in a value in the input box, you want that value to get temporarily stored in a variable. Okay, so what we'll do is let's call it A. Okay, now you'll see that A is equal to input box, and then see how the way I did that, it gives you the help prompt that gives you a hint as to what to need to do. Now, the first thing that's highlighted is the prompt. Now, this would be what the input box is prompting the user as as a hint as to what to do. So let's just say enter lower limit. Okay. Now, B could be input box, enter upper limit. Okay, so what we have now is this function here, input box. This is actually going to create that input box and will give you this prompt, enter lower limit. So now the person who's using this Excel sheet would know what to do. Okay. Similarly, this input box here, it says enter upper limit. This, when this is run, this command is run, it will create an input box and the user will be prompted to enter the upper limit. And this lower limit would get assigned to this variable A, and this upper limit would get assigned to variable B. Now we've got our upper limits and lower limits defined. Not well, not actually defined, but we've got them taken care of in the sense that the user is now being prompted to enter the upper limit and the lower limit. Okay? Now comes the actual part. Let's assume that we want the random number being generated to go into cell A1. That's the top left cell. Okay, so the way you do that is range. We have seen that in the previous video. You tell Excel which cell that you want this to go to is equal to worksheet function dot. As soon as you do that, it gives you a list of parameters that the functions that you can do. But we are looking at random. So if I press R, we straight away go to the functions that start with R. So you've got rand array, you got radius, rand between, rank. But what we are looking is for rand between. That means random between. Okay. And this is argument 1, argument 2. Now this is the argument 1 is the lower limit, argument 2 is the upper limit. Now here we have defined A as your lower limit, so we just put in A, and argument 2 is your B, that's the upper limit. Okay, so we've got that taken care of. All right, now let's hit enter and let's come out of this. Now we've assigned this to our button, this button here. Okay, like we've seen in the previous video, hold down the Alt key and this will allow you to lock these onto cells and rows. It just makes it look better. So we can call this random number generator. Okay. Okay, this doesn't fit, so let me just make it. Oops, sorry. Let me just make this a little bigger. There you go. Okay. Now, what will happen is when I click on this button, an input box is going to open here and ask me for the lower limit, and then the input box is going to open up. That's going to ask me for the upper limit. And once I've put in those two variables, it will use that to generate a random number and plug it in here. So what we'll do is we'll just highlight this here so that we know that value is going to go here. Okay, so let's click on this button here. There you go. That's your input box. Enter lower limit. So let's just say our lower limit is 1 and our upper limit is going to be 10. Okay, so now it's saying enter upper limit. 10. Click on OK. Now once I click on OK, I've given the VBA code, the upper limit and the lower limit, and the worksheet function dot rand between is going to use those values and generate a random number, and then the range function is going to populate this cell with the random number. So if I click on OK, we should get a random number that's between 1 and 10. Click on OK, and there you go. The random number is 4. This time it happened to be 4. If I click on this again and give the same upper values, and upper limits and lower limits, okay, because I want to show you that, this time we got 4, but next time we will get a different number. We can get 4 again, but chances of that are are less. We should get, we are more likely to get a different number. Click on OK, gives you an 8. Okay, try again. 1, 10. Click on OK. It gives you a different value. Okay? Now, that was one method of doing that. Having two input boxes that prompt the user to give you to punch in the lower limit and the upper limit. Now, supposing this is your let's check this one here. This is your lower limit and this is your upper limit. Okay, so basically this is, if you see this cell here, if you go over here, it says your O1, and if you see this cell here is O3. So basically O1 is going to be giving us the lower limit, and O3 is going to be giving us the upper limit. Now, what we need to do is, instead of an input box, we will just manually put in values here, and we'll create another button. And when we click on that button, it's going to, the VBA code is actually going to read O1 and O3 and use whatever is stored in these two cells as the upper limit and the lower limit for the worksheet function brand between function, and generate a random number, and we will put it over here. Okay, so let's just give it a different color. Okay, so this 2 was coming from the input boxes. This one would be coming from reading the contents of these 2 cells. So what we need to do is we need to create another button, because we've already got this button tied to the input boxes. So we need to have a different button that will read these 2 cells. So click on new. See, this was the code that we did for the that was giving us the input boxes. Now here, this code here, this is going to be going and reading O1 and O3 and picking up the values from there. Now what we can do is we can copy paste this code here. That's one way of doing it. Now instead of saying input box, what we'll do is we give range O1. So basically whatever is in O1 gets stored in A. Let's call this C, and so there's no confusion later on. We call this B, and we will call this range O3. Okay, and this would be range 3. All right, so basically what this is doing is, this part here is actually going and reading the cell O1, and whatever is stored in the in O1 gets assigned to the variable C. This part here goes and reads hold on, I forgot the double quote here. Good thing. What this does is it goes and reads the contents of cell O3, and whatever is stored in O3 gets assigned to variable D for Dallas. And then this part here says the cell A3 needs to be populated with a value that is, and this needs to be C and this needs to be D. a random number between C and D, which means a random number that's between the contents of O1 and O3. Okay, and let's clean this cell up, this button up, holding down the Alt key, and okay, so we'll just call it read cells for limits. Okay, now what's going to do is when I click on this button, it's going to go and read the lower limit and the upper limit and use those two limits to generate a random number and plug that random number in this cell here. Okay, so let's just click on this button. There you go. See, 8 is a number between 1 and 10. If I click on this again, we'll keep giving you a different number. Okay, so this was method number 1. This was using input box. Okay, and this method here, this was reading cells. So basically what we did was we created two buttons. This button would actually generate a input box, and the person sitting in front of the computer would be punching in the lower limit and upper limits in those two input boxes, and then VB would be using those two limits to generate a number and putting in a 1. In here, what we're doing is we are not using an input box. In fact, what we are doing is reading the contents of the cell here, these two cells, and using these two contents as an upper limit and lower limit, and then generating a random number between those two limits and plugging it over here in this cell here. So that was how you could how you would generate a input box, create an input box for the input, and then you have two input boxes for upper limit, lower limit, and then create generate a random number, or how you could go and read two different cells and use those contents of those two cells as limits for random numbers between the upper limit and lower limit for the random numbers, and actually generate random numbers and plug those the random number value in two cells here. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, please kindly give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe and make sure to give us your feedback in the comment section below. And also don't forget to hit the bell icon so you're always notified with by YouTube when new videos are uploaded. Thank you.